Now, I have heard that Lee Revkins here is perhaps the worst Piston Cup Racer Thailand variant. Now, everyone says that the worst Thailand variant just in general is probably Mel Dorado because his color is just so crazily wildly off. He's actually right back there. If you can maybe spot him. Yeah, there he is. That little son of a gun. But today we'll be taking a look at what everyone says is the worst Thailand Piston Cup racer. And I will let you guys know if I agree with that statement or not. We have a bunch of the other Thailand Piston Cup racers of the same model. So perfect comparison opportunities. And this one is a long time in the making. This is a 2023 release, but he was also released from Thailand back in 2019. So yeah, I should have reviewed them a while ago, but hey, other priorities popped up. And hey, we've hit a little bit of a slow period now after KC, and I figured this was a good time to review Lee Revkins, even though I have been doing a lot of these Thailand Piston Cup reviews as of late. Hey, what's another one? What's the big deal? So let's just dive right on into it. If you guys are looking for any cars, if you want this one maybe in specific, check out GetMeCollecitlbes. His info, his eBay store, his emails, all linked in the description below. If you want to just email him asking about something, that is cool too. And yeah, I'm very excited to get into Lee here because he is one of my favorite racers from the first movie. So I would be a little disappointed if this one is one of the worst. But yeah, he's got the classic art that they've used ever since his first 2008 plastic release, the plastic tire release from K-Day. That was the first ever K-Day I believe they held, and then they did him a few years later with rubber tires. But yeah, he looks fine. Looks a little bit like a light purple though. I think there are multiple variants of him. Cars Diecast Reviews showed me a picture of a light variant and a darker variant. I think this will be the lighter variant. But anyways, on the back here, you can see a bunch of other Cars 1 2023 releases. Sarge, Greg Candyman, who in fact, this document shows him in a lighter color, but he ended up getting released in the darker brown. You have Lizzie, Mater, Doc Hudson Cruisin', Lightning McQueen, and Andy Vaporlock, who I guess they did consider as a 2023 release in addition to 2022. So he was in back-to-back years. Kind of strange for an obscure character like him. Now, it's actually crazy, guys. Crazy story real quick. Some of you guys might have already known about this, but I went out to the store. I knew I wanted to do a video on him, so I specifically... I saw him and I just grabbed him and I started walking out. And as I was looking at him, which I don't really do, I just kind of grab and go, I did notice that the one I selected was an Air. As you can see, they put a next-gen wheel on the back here. That is a next-gen wheel. You can see the difference between the regular wheel that's supposed to have, but they still stamped it with the Lightyear text that a stock car's wheels would have. So it's crazy. I was like, all right, I can't open that one and can't review that one now because that is a very cool Air that I would have to keep in the package. But I did end up finding another one, a few weeks later. That also contributed, honestly, to the delay of this. But yeah, you can see how this one has the correct wheels there versus the next-gen wheel that slipped onto this one. It would be cool to know if the wheel on the other side that's facing the card is also a next-gen wheel or if it's regular. I would probably venture to guess it's regular, but we'll never know because I will never open it since it is a pretty cool Air. But what I am going to open is this right now.
Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, risking it all on you.
Here's our boy all opened up. Looking alright so far. His eyes look kind of set back. They look a little sunken in. It's my first impression, kind of a negative one so far. But let's get to a positive thing, and that is his appearance in the first Cars movie. Always felt bad for the guy. I really, really did. Bro's like in second place, I guess, almost, right? And then just comes up out of nowhere as Chick Hicks and barely even taps him, and poor Lee goes flying all over the place. It was a cool 2-pack that they did in 2014 with those two characters, though. But yeah, Lee has been released quite a bit. He's one of the characters, one of the Piston Cup racers released the most, honestly, if you look at it in totality. He's up there with Claude Scruggs and Aiken Axler and all those guys, all the originals, just because he snuck in, that 2-pack release. He snuck in multiple single releases over the last few years. And he also had 2 Kmart releases back in the day, let alone, the classic launcher and the Motor Speedway of the South, stuff like that. So yeah, Lee has been around the block a lot. And this is how he used to look when he was made from China. And so yeah, definitely a more accurate color, a lot darker purple, a lot more on the blue scale, and this is a little bit more on the magenta side. And also, his wing is yellow versus this very muddled kind of like snot mustard color. Man, I don't like to jump the gun or anything, but I would have to agree, this is already tracking to be like the worst Thailand piston car racer ever, because I'm not vibing with any of the changes so far at all. Now, granted, as you guys know, whenever we do these comparisons, I do use the Motor Speedway of the South version of the original Chinese racer, and that is why this is actually the first one I've shown you guys in a while infected by zinc pest. You could actually see the physical effects, the physical impact of that condition that is known to affect the Motor Speedway of the South cars, which is super unfortunate considering how rare they are. Apple car, the Dale Earnhardt one as well. Those are exclusives basically to that set. So it really stings. Fortunately, I have not had issues with those, knock on wood, yet. But Lee Revkins has actually been one that, in both my sets, I believe, they are kind of messed up. Maybe actually just one. I'm not sure about the other one. But you can see here that his body is starting to expand. You can see the gap, the cleavage in between the plastic base and the metal body, how it almost looks like he's trying to fly. It's like his wings are trying to expand. You can also see on his spoiler back there, the cracks in the paint. His paint looks pretty solid everywhere else, though, I will say. So in all things considered, this one's not that bad. I've definitely seen worse online, and I have ones that are far worse than this. It's just something that happens, something, that comes with the territory, unfortunately. But we could still use it for an effective comparison here. Plus, I don't think this will be much of a comparison at all. The coloring is really the main issue for me right now. I just think that the coloring is so much more accurate on the original Chinese version that it kind of renders this new one null and void. Like, why did you even do it? I guess I understand he looks a little bit more in line with Mike Stockcar, but again, Mike Stockcar, this pity, doesn't even appear in the movie. It's one of the team's Transberry juices that doesn't have a team animated. Obviously, there is a team, but Pixar just did not animate one, so we don't have anything to go off of. But that does not mean that you should emulate the non-canon imaginary pity, right? It should be the darker color. And, even the factory customizers got a little bit better with this pickup truck, crew chief or whatever, that they did a long time ago. It's not perfect. It's not a perfect match by any means, but it's a lot closer than this light purple that we're working with now. And honestly, Mattel and sponsor Transberry Juice has had very tumultuous relationships since 2017 when CB here came out, because his color is horrible as well. And he actually has 3 colors. He's got a different purple for his mouth plate. He's got a different purple for the main metal base. And he's got a different purple for his plastic hat up here, which just looks absolutely abysmal. This literally looks like my N2O Cola my semi prototype, because all the colors are off on that as well. But that's a prototype at the end of the day. This was the official release, and because there are multiple materials used here, they all end up being different colors, and they don't match Lee at all. That darker purple just seems to be an impossible color to match these days. I mean, nothing can get it right. And to expand off that, of course, in 2019, you got Mike Stockcar, who was a great release, very, very exciting release, but definitely an inaccurate color. And if you're going to do some piston cut pitties, like, why not do ones that actually appear in the movie? They opted that year to do 3 that didn't appear in the movie. I like them all. Megan Shifter, Brandon Majere, and Mike Stockcar here, but Fiber Fuel, Taco Mint, and Transberry Juice respectively did not get their teams animated in the movie, whereas Bumper Save, Gaskets, Shiny Wax, Leakless, Octane Gain, No Stall, Vitaline, Mood Springs, obviously they all did have sponsors animated, or not sponsors, but pit crews animated. To continue the tumultuous relationship, of course, we did get, the Cars 3 Transberry Juice Racers, and that's all well and fine. You have Marcus Cranksler, kind of an ugly looking one to me. Bubba Wheelhouse, based on real life Bubba Wallace. He's cool and all that. I like him. They changed the number to 6, of course, to reflect Bubba's real life number at that point in time. But let's remember when they did Bubba Wheelhouse in the NASCAR line in early, I think 2021 it was, or no, it was maybe early 2022. I think that might have been it. Yeah, early 2022 when they did him, and they followed it up with Rowdy Revenbush to close out the series. They changed the name of the sponsor from Transberry Juice to Torqueberry Juice. Now, I do suspect that they were trying to avoid any offensive terms. They're going to stop right there in terms of my oration about that, but you could easily look up and find out why that term may become offensive. But you still do release the other ones. Like, we still have seen Bubba Wheelhouse in his original Transberry Juice form get released in that Walmart 5-pack. And Lee Revkins, of course, was just released in 2023. So, yeah, Mattel, Transberry Juice, it's honestly one of the worst relationships between a character and a group of characters and the manufacturer that you could really pinpoint out of any of the Disney Cars line, to be honest with you. If you really take a deep dive into it, they can't get the color right, then they change the name, but it also just feels weird because they're still releasing other ones with the old name. I just don't get it, right? So there's my rant on that. It was a long rant. And I know we haven't really even gotten into the comparison yet, but that was important stuff to tackle. And yeah, this is tracking to be a pretty bad variant. But hey, the logo looks all right. The yellow is just not as bright and vibrant looking as it was before. It's much more muddled down. I always have loved this oil can though. It's a perfect part of the logo here. The bubbles, everything is just inferior. The coloring, the crispness of the decals, the eyes, they do look sunken back. And I just wish they gave him a better expression. We've seen Mattel give these racers really nice, improved expressions over their original Chinese versions. But they just did not do that with Lee Revkins. And it feels really weird. It feels really strange. This expression is definitely kind of more in line with Kevin Racing Tire here, who I don't think looks very good. But, Kevin Schiffer, I think, looks actually pretty decent. They all look similar. But if you take a closer look, you'll see the differences in them. Pretty much same mouth there. Both have the black wheels, Lightyear tires. Of course, though, with the Thailand version, the axles are too long, so the wheel kind of slides out from under the body. That happens. They have problems with the axles on all these racers. The contingency sponsors looks like a muddled mess. You can see right there with all the just blurriness of the decals compared to what we were used to back in the day. Just look how much more crisp this group of decals is compared to what we're getting now. Gosh, man, I know some people might not care about that, but it's hard to accept and swallow a decline in quality like that. But hey, you guys might be saying, yeah, Mr. Dockett, you're talking about quality and all that crap. Well, I bet you in 20 years, your Thailand Lee Revkins won't be falling apart and its paint won't be cracking and its body won't be expanding. And you have a pretty good point. I will say you do have a pretty gosh darn good point, okay? So, in the whole fairness to Mattel, now I know the zinc pest really only affects cars from the Motor Speedway of the South set. Other cars released from China around that time are relatively fine. I've had some issues with my Derek Decals Dobbs, for example, the eyes cracking on that. But overall, like the 2008 Lee Revkins is probably going to be just fine. It's the Motor Speedway of the South because they used a special kind of paint in that set that they did not use really on anything else. I will give Thailand credit for the gas cap that actually is apparent, whereas here you would have to run your finger over it to feel the indentation of it and be aware of its presence. You got the opaque windows here. You have the window bars colored. The stream of the juice. I just hate the yellow now. It just looks so much where it's like they turned down the opacity and they grained it up. They dirtied it up. It's like, why? Why can't we have this bright, poignant yellow that we used to have? Why can't we have this beautiful deep purple? Why do we have to have all these like lighter muddled colors now, softer? I don't get it, guys. But yeah, you guys were right. You warned me. I should have taken your word for it that this variant is pretty poor. What the hell was Mattel thinking? At the end of the day, the main issue is the color, right? Like if everything else was the same and it was the correct color, like it would probably be just as, fine as Kevin Racing Tire that we just showed. But no, because the color's off, because the decals are bad, because the expression's bad, because the eyes, the axles, etc., etc., it's all bad. It definitely, in recent memory, this is probably, the worst Thailand Piston Cup racer that Mattel has done. Womp, womp, womp. And on a side note, I think Mattel did a much better job with the Thailand version of Bubba Wheelhouse here in that 5-pack. I think they gave him a better expression. The paint looks way better because it's so much more glossier. He's a unibody, so the windows are a part of the main metal body and so are the eyes, whereas that's not the case with the Lee Revkins. The eyes are a separate plastic piece, and even though the decals aren't quite as crisp, it's a just much better job overall. A way easier look on the eyes than when I have to look at Lee Revkins, which I have been doing for the last few minutes here, and it's not been great. But hey, you guys come here for honest reviews. They haven't sent me a paycheck yet. I haven't gotten a check in the mail from Mattel yet, so I can say whatever I want. And I hope you guys appreciate that. But at the end of the day, I still love Transberry juice. I still love cars. Don't you guys worry. I love Mike's stock car, even though he is such a weird release. I love his little cute yellow hat because that is a pretty poignant shade of yellow. I remember this guy is actually pretty rare these days, believe it or not. But yeah, I like Lee quite a bit. I just don't really like this version of him. But you guys let me know your thoughts. Maybe this is a dumb question, but hey, maybe there are people out there who do like the Thailand version better than the Chinese version. You guys let me know which version of Lee Revkins do you prefer, China or Thailand, and which racer from Transberry / Torqueberry juice is your favorite. I think a lot of people will go with Bubba Wheelhouse, but I think there's also going to be a lot of people that are sticking with the classics, man, of Lee Revkins. Marcus Cranksler, I'm sorry, I don't think you're going to get many votes because they got rid of the purple on him and they just made like a weird blue and yellow. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of him, but he is also quite rare as well. It's a very forlorn racer at this point. Anyways, guys, as per usual, thank you for your support. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time for another video. Bye now.